and welcome to Wednesday's story time. The children were about to watch the Eddie Hare show to see if they could get a glimpse of what might be going to happen and why the headmaster had got them involved. The television set flickered briefly, and then the pictures swelled into colour. 6 girls, apparently with no heads, danced across the screen, chased by a large gorilla.
Yes, folks, said a cheerful voice from nowhere, it's what you've all been waiting for. Your weekly dose of craziness in a sane, sad world. The great, the magnificent, the one and only Eddie Hare Show.
The gorilla jumped into a dustbin. Then it reached up and pulled its head off, revealing Eddie Hare's purple painted face. "It's all rubbish," he said severely. "Only idiots watch this show. Tests prove that 99.9% of our viewers have no heads." Bounding from the dustbin, he waggled his purple hair at the audience. "Just you wait till you see what a vintage load of rubbish is on the show today. If you had any sense, you'd switch off now. Got you guessing? That's how I like it." At manic speed, the show swung into its usual succession of gags, sketches, and disasters. Some of it was pre-recorded, like the piece where Eddie Hare swung from a helicopter, dropping balloons shaped like fat ladies over a beauty contest. But most of it was live, and one or two of the disasters were obviously completely unexpected. Whatever happened, Eddie Hare laughed his raucous laugh, and all over the country people fell about, clutching their sides helplessly. Only in the Hunter's sitting room were there total grim silence. All the members of Splat were watching the show like detectives, trying to see whether the headmaster was interested in it. And the more they watched, the more baffled they became. At last there was a fanfare of trumpets, accompanied by wild grunts from a pig. "At last!" bellowed Eddie Hare. "Now you'll see that the people round here are not only mad, but stupid. It's the Great School Quiz." Immediately the cameras panned round to the school hall where the show was taking place. 2 teams, each of 3 children, were sitting facing each other, and beside each, on a throne, sat a cheerful-looking head teacher. Eddie Hare walked across the stage with his knees knocking dramatically. "Can't stand teachers," he whispered at the camera. "They terrify me." Then, with a grin, he was squatting on top of a barrel, reaching for the first question. "Right, it's a question for the Manor Junior School. You have 30 seconds to think, and anyone can answer, if you're not all too thick to work it out. Here goes. I want to buy roller skates for my chickens. 12% of them have only one leg, and half the rest refuse to wear roller skates. So how many skates do I need to buy?" "That's impossible," Mandy said. "He hasn't said how many chickens there are." "It's the same number of skates as the number of chickens," Dinah said calmly. "It works out to one leg each." Almost 30 seconds later, a brain-looking boy with glasses faltered. "The same as the number of chickens?" Eddie Hare beamed at him. "Watch you don't burn your brain out, genius. Thinking's bad for your football." Now, the next question. As the quiz went on, the questions grew harder and harder, but Dinah answered them all, hardly pausing to think. And the more she answered, the crosser Lloyd got. "Oh, shut up!" he yelled as the last question was asked. "We know you've got brains the size of the Eiffel Tower. No need to rub it in. I vote we turn off this stupid programme." "Not yet," wailed Ingrid. "It just gets into my favourite bit with the head teachers. Let's watch that." On the screen, Eddie Hare was waggling a finger at the headmaster of Shillington Stone School. "You lot," he said cheerfully, "are the dimmest school of the week. Prepare to receive your reward." In a flash, a giant panda appeared behind the headmaster's chair and tipped a bucketful of flour over his head. As he was emerging from the white cloud, brushing it from his beard, his pupils cheered wildly. "I can just see our headmaster liking that," Ian said with relish. "Perhaps the whole thing will be fun." No, murmured Mandy. We're going to win, remember? That's even better, chuckled Ingrid. Do listen. What's the other head teacher going to say? But Eddie Hare was now pointing at the headmaster of the winning school. You seem to have a crowd of geniuses, he said sourly. Suppose you tell us how you did it. This headmaster was a large, cheerful man with a red face. The camera panned in on him so that his face filled the whole screen. Doughnuts, he said perfectly gravely. We fill them full of doughnuts every morning before school. Good for the brain. You should try some, Eddie. And if anyone refuses to eat the doughnuts, we... He went on for a full minute, with the camera to himself, explaining the magical qualities of doughnuts, before the panda reappeared and jammed 3 doughnuts into his open mouth. Lloyd reached forward and switched off the set. You see, he said contemptuously, there's nothing for us to go on. It's just a red herring that Dinah's dreamed up. Wait! Dinah had gone white, and she was still staring at the empty screen with her mouth open. Then, as if she was being strangled, she said, It's always like that, isn't it? The headmaster of the winning team gets a whole minute to talk, to say whatever rubbish comes into his head, with most of the people in the country watching. Ian nodded. Well, Dinah gulped. Think of what our headmaster could do with that. Mandy gasped. Would a minute be enough? Harvey said. Probably, Dinah considered. I don't think it took him nearly as long as a minute to hypnotise me the first time. But that's devilish, spluttered Ingrid. He'd have the whole country in his power. Do you think that's really what he's planning? I don't see how he could resist it, Dinah said miserably. Do you, Lloyd? Lloyd would dearly have liked to say that she was wrong, just to show her up. But the more he thought about it, the more certain it seemed. I think you've got it, he said grudgingly. But why? Dinah chewed her bottom lip. Lloyd jumped to his feet. That's obvious. Don't be so dumb, Dinah. He'll be able to make his fortune. All he has to do is tell everyone to send him £100 or go out and rob a bank or something. He'll be the richest man in the world. Of course, said Ian and Harvey together. But Dinah looked doubtful. I'm not sure. It doesn't seem quite... Oh, you, Lloyd said bitterly. You want to have all the inspirations, just because I thought of this one. Mandy interrupted him, ready to make peace as always. I can't see that it matters why he's doing it. The important thing is, what are we going to do about it? Couldn't Dinah just lose the quiz? Ingrid said hopefully. No, Harvey went white and Dinah shook her head as well. That's too dangerous. He planned all this before I came, so he must have some scheme even if the team loses. No, the only safe thing is to stop the Eddie Hare show coming to the school at all. Right. Lloyd decided that they had all listened to her for long enough. His head was suddenly bursting with ideas and he was determined to take charge. I'm the chairman and I'm going to make the plans. Everyone looked round at him and he grew more confident. This was better, like before Dinah came. Everyone waiting for him to tell them what to do. We'll keep quiet for a week so that no one suspects anything. Then, on the day of the show, this is what will happen. Chapter 13. Splat goes into action. When Lloyd, Harvey and Dinah arrived at school the next Friday morning, there was something slightly different about the atmosphere in the playground. A feeling of suppressed excitement. No one pranced about or did imitations of Eddie Hare or boasted about being on the quiz team. The children were standing in their usual circles, chanting away. But the chant was a bit faster, and, from time to time, people looked at each other breathlessly. It was plain what they were thinking. At 6 o'clock that evening, they would be sitting in the hall, and they would be on television. The members of Splat kept well away from each other. There was no need to speak. They knew what they had to do. For a whole week they'd been going over it at their meetings until the arrangements were perfect. This morning there were only 5 of them in the playground. Ian had hidden on the way to school, ready to carry out the first part of Lloyd's plan, and Mandy carried a note forged by Dinah, which said that Ian would not be at school that day because he had a cold. As the prefects gathered on the steps and the children started to move into line, Lloyd glanced round quickly to check that Mandy and Ingrid were there. As he glanced at them, they crossed their fingers quickly and moved off. Lloyd drew a deep breath. Nothing must go wrong. He only hoped that he had thought of everything. The big outside broadcast lorries trundled through the town, carrying the equipment needed to set up that evening's Eddie Hare show. Inside, the drivers and technicians were laughing and chatting to each other. This was the easy part of their job. Once the show started, they were tense, not knowing what was going to happen from one moment to the next. Whatever Eddie Hare sprang on them, they had to cope with somehow. But if they got the cameras and lights and microphones set up in good time, they could cope with anything. At the traffic lights in the middle of the town, the first driver paused and pulled out a map. Right, he said, we turn left here and... He stopped suddenly. A tall, fair-haired boy in immaculate school uniform was jumping up and down beside his cab, trying to catch his attention. He wound the window down and leaned out. Yes, Sonny? Are you the television people? Ian put on his most virtuous and reliable expression. Coming to do the Eddie Hare show at our school? Yes, that's right. You looking for us? Ian nodded. The headmaster sent me. He asked if you would take the lorries round the back way. You go left here, right up the little lane, over the bridge, and... Here, would you like me to come along and show you? I've got to go back to school anyway. Sure, hop in. The driver grinned at him. Nice to come to a school where we get looked after so well. Ian climbed up into the cab and began to direct. Behind, he heard the other lorries start up and his mouth went dry. Only it worked. If only they did not suspect anything. Left here, he said, his voice completely calm. Then right. You sure you got this right, Sonny? As the man beside him swung the wheel, he glanced sideways doubtfully. I don't see any sign of a school. That's all right, Ian said airily. You can't see it from here. Go through those gates and I'll hop out and tell the headmaster you've come. Then you can bring the lorries up to the door one by one. Still frowning, the driver turned the wheel again. Slowly, the lorry crunched through a pair of tall gates into the disused quarry. In front of them, tall cliffs of chalk stretched up on every side, cutting off any view. Ian threw the door open and slipped down out of the cab. Wait here. Won't be a moment. I'm going to leave it there for tonight. We'll have to see what happens next tomorrow. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow for the next part of our story. Hopefully Ripley will join us and we'll get to hear what's going on. Take care. Have a lovely evening.